What if the sweetest part of your day was slowly poisoning you? That piece of chocolate you pop into your mouth after dinner, the truffles you save for special occasions, or the dark squares you eat because you've heard they're good for your heart. What if they were quietly loading your body with toxic metals? In April 2025, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration confirmed alarming findings. Several popular chocolate brands sold in American stores contained lead and cadmium levels that could exceed California's Proposition 65 daily safety limits. Behind these shiny wrappers are investigations linking some of these same brands to deforestation, child labor, and supply chains riddled with ethical violations. We're not just eating chocolate, we're swallowing a system built on profit at any cost. How many of us trusted these brands for decades without ever asking what they're hiding? How much of our health have we been trading for a bite of sweetness? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And today we're exposing these 5 popular chocolate brands could be loaded with heavy metals. Number 1. Hersheys. You wouldn't think twice about slipping a Hersheys bar into your shopping cart, would you? It feels as natural as grabbing a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread. It's the candy that's been there for birthdays, school fundraisers, and quiet nights on the porch. It smiles at you from store shelves like an old friend saying, "Go on, you deserve this." But what if that friendly smile was hiding a secret, one that could crawl under your skin like a splinter you didn't know was there? Because in 2025, Hersheys isn't just the chocolate of family picnics and warm memories. It's the brand whispered about in the same breath as lead and cadmium. In February, Consumer Reports tested several chocolate bars, and Hershey's special darkened milk chocolate didn't just fail. They raised alarms. Lead levels were found at over 0.9 micrograms per serving, while cadmium hovered at 0.7 micrograms. Both figures breach California's Proposition 65 safe exposure limits. For older folks, these aren't just numbers on paper. They mean the bones you're counting on to carry you through retirement could weaken. The memory you're fighting to hold onto could slip faster, all because of a sweet treat that once felt harmless. Doesn't that make you wonder? How many times have we trusted a brand simply because it's been around forever, never stopping to ask what's changed behind the shiny wrappers? Then March brought more bad news. A lawsuit in New York accused Hersheys of misleading customers and hiding these toxic risks. And as if that weren't enough to sour the taste, Reuters revealed the same month that Hershey still sources cocoa from West African farms where forced child labor thrives. A former child worker described being beaten for moving too slowly while hauling cocoa sacks heavier than his own body. Picture unwrapping a Hershey's bar, only to see in your mind a young boy collapsing in the dirt under a 100-pound load, so your candy could go on sale. That kind of thought doesn't just leave a bitter taste. It burns in your throat like guilt you can't swallow. By April, the European Union had stepped in, banning Hershey's dark chocolate imports for failing to meet updated cadmium and pesticide residue standards. Germany and Sweden openly declared Hershey's products not permitted for sale until compliance is proven. Meanwhile, American parents took to social media, horrified that they'd been packing these bars into their kids' lunchboxes. The brand that once felt like a cozy neighbor now looks more like the guy who smiles too wide while hiding a broken lock on his back door. But before we sharpen our pitchforks, maybe we need to step back for a moment. Why would a company risk burning away a century of trust? Cocoa prices have surged nearly 40% since late 2024 due to droughts in Ghana and Ivory Coast, and shareholders demand profits, not excuses. Hershey's may have cut corners, turning to cheaper suppliers, because in the world of big business, morality doesn't keep the lights on. Margins do. It's not an excuse, but it does raise a question. Is Hershey's the villain, or is it just another pawn in a system where health and honesty lose every time to corporate pressure? So what now? Maybe the answer is to take back a little control. Brands like Equal Exchange or Tony's Chocolonely have already published 2025 lab results showing heavy metals within safe limits, and they maintain transparent, fair trade sourcing. Or you could go one step further. Melt organic cocoa butter, stir in unsweetened cocoa powder, and sweeten with honey. 3 simple ingredients and no hidden surprises. Still, the bigger question weighs heavier than any candy bar. Have we, by chasing cheap comfort, become part of the problem? Do we shrug and say, "That's just how it is," while quietly letting this machine chew away at our trust? When was the last time you felt truly betrayed by something you thought was safe? Maybe this isn't just about chocolate. Maybe it's about how far we've let profit strip away everything we once believed was honest, and whether we've been too tired, too busy, or too scared to fight back. Number 2. Lint. Lint has always worn its luxury like a silk tie, promising a little taste of the high life with every smooth bite. The ads show gold foil glinting under soft candlelight, truffles sitting like tiny jewels on silver trays, and happy families exchanging them as if they were handing over treasure. For many, gifting a Lint box feels like saying, "You're worth something special." But what if that gold foil was less treasure chest and more Pandora's box? Because in 2025, the truth under that shiny wrapper turned out to be far from sweet. January brought a chill that had nothing to do with winter weather. Consumer Reports tested 23 chocolate products and found Lint Excellence 85% cocoa dark chocolate to be one of the worst for cadmium contamination. The numbers were ugly, 0.96 micrograms of cadmium per serving, exceeding California's Proposition 65 safe level. Toxicologists didn't mince words. Cadmium is tied to kidney failure, brittle bones, and for older Americans already worried about fragile health, it's like being handed poison wrapped in gold paper. Imagine buying Lint because you believed dark chocolate was the healthier option, only to find out it's as risky as drinking from a rusty garden hose dressed up with a fancy label. And if that wasn't enough to sour the taste, March twisted the knife deeper. The Guardian published an investigation linking Lint to illegal deforestation in Ghana and child labor through indirect suppliers. Satellite images showed over 7,000 acres of protected forest wiped out for cocoa farming, and whistleblowers spoke of children working barefoot from dawn to dusk, spraying toxic pesticides with no protection. Suddenly, those sustainable and fair trade labels felt like a bad joke. A commenter on Reddit's R Food Safety summed it up with biting sarcasm. Fair trade apparently means trading kids' childhoods for Easter bunnies. The betrayal stung even worse because Lint didn't just sell chocolate. It sold the promise of doing better, of being above the messy ethics of cheap brands. April only tightened the knot in everyone's stomach. Norway and Denmark slapped temporary restrictions on Lint dark chocolate imports after new EU guidelines flagged excessive cadmium levels. Lint released a smooth, carefully worded statement promising compliance reviews, but critics pointed out there were no actual steps shared to fix the issue. Social media piled on, with videos of people tossing Lint truffles into the trash, their gold foil catching the light as it fell like tiny, guilty confessions. Still, maybe there's more to this story than greed alone. Cocoa prices have hit a 14-year high due to climate-driven crop failures, and even luxury brands are feeling the squeeze. Some insiders whisper that Lint, like others, is stuck trying to keep prices stable while costs skyrocket, pushing them towards cheaper, poorly regulated suppliers. It's tragic if you think about it. Behind the glossy ads of silky chocolate fountains might be a boardroom full of nervous executives staring at spreadsheets, wondering how to survive another quarter. But even if you can sympathize with the pressure, does that justify putting our health on the line or robbing children of their futures? If you still crave chocolate, maybe it's time to rethink where you place your trust. Bean-to-bar companies like Dandelion Chocolate or French Broad Chocolate have already shared independent 2025 lab results, showing much lower cadmium levels and fully traceable cocoa sources. Or you can skip the gamble entirely. Melt certified organic cocoa powder with coconut oil, roll it in shredded coconut or crushed nuts, and you'll know exactly what you're putting into your body. So here's the question that lingers longer than the taste of any truffle. Have we been buying an illusion all along, confusing fancy wrapping for safety and ethics? Maybe the real cost of that smooth Lint bite isn't just a few extra dollars. It's fragile bones, poisoned soil, and stolen childhoods half a world away. When was the last time you caught yourself trusting a brand simply because it looked better? Maybe it's time we stopped letting gold foil blind us and started asking for proof before our sweet moments leave us with nothing but guilt. Number 3. Godiva. Godiva has always dressed itself in elegance. The chocolate that whispers romance and sophistication without needing a single word. It's the heart-shaped box in Valentine's commercials, the golden bag that turns an ordinary birthday into a big occasion, and the go-to peace offering for countless husbands hoping to smooth over an argument. The brand leans heavily on its Belgian heritage and artisanal craftsmanship, wrapping itself in an image of old-world charm. But in 2025, that golden charm feels more like gold paint peeling off cheap metal. because behind the shimmer lies a story that scrapes hard against every ounce of trust we thought we had. March brought a revelation that left many stunned. Consumer Reports tested multiple premium chocolates and found Godiva's 72% dark chocolate intense and signature dark truffles among the worst offenders for lead contamination, with 1.1 micrograms per serving. Toxicologists warned that even small amounts add up, especially for seniors already battling fragile health or creeping memory loss. In April, a Florida retiree filed a lawsuit after developing chronic kidney problems, saying she had eaten Godiva dark chocolate daily for over a year without knowing it could be a health risk. Her lawyer's words to NBC hit like a hammer. People paid top dollar for what they believed was safe luxury. What they got was poison wrapped in gold. The hits didn't stop with heavy metals. In May, Amnesty International released a report linking Godiva to exploitative labor conditions in West Africa. Despite years of promises, auditors discovered children as young as 12 still harvesting cocoa, some enduring beatings for working too slowly. One boy in the Ivory Coast admitted to spraying toxic pesticides all day without gloves, earning less than $2 for 12-hour shifts. Paying $30 for a small box of truffles suddenly felt like buying guilt by the ounce. Our luxury funded with stolen childhoods. A sarcastic post on Facebook summed up the mood. Nothing says premium like a kid coughing up pesticide dust while you unwrap your gold foil. By late May, the outrage spread to Europe. Belgium's Federal Agency for the Safety of the Food Chain temporarily restricted Godiva's dark chocolate exports after cadmium levels failed to meet stricter EU standards. Godiva issued a smooth statement promising to review supplier compliance, but refused to release any lab results, leaving a bitter taste in consumers' mouths. Viral TikTok clips showed people smashing Godiva boxes, the sound of breaking chocolates echoing under captions like, "Not worth the heavy metal diet." And yet, step back for a moment and the picture becomes complicated. Global cocoa shortages have driven prices through the roof, and Godiva, now owned by a Turkish conglomerate, has been expanding rapidly in the US, opening cafe after cafe while trying to keep prices affordable. Maybe some of those bad decisions weren't born of greed, but from being cornered, shareholders breathing down their necks, demanding profits no matter what. It's almost tragic if you think about it. Behind those glossy ads of swirling chocolate and smiling lovers might be a boardroom full of anxious executives staring at balance sheets, convincing themselves there's no other way. But here's the question. Does desperation excuse risking public health or letting children pay the price for our idea of luxury? If you're not ready to give up chocolate, at least demand better. Brands like Rocca or Askinosie Chocolate released independent 2025 lab results proving their lead levels stay well below California's Prop 65 limits, and they run direct trade programs to ensure farmers are paid fairly. Or try making your own quick chocolate bark. Melt fair trade cocoa butter, stir in low cadmium cocoa powder, sprinkle roasted almonds, and chill it yourself. At least you'll know where every ingredient comes from. Still, the real question lingers like a bitter aftertaste. Have we been buying shiny illusions all this time, confusing expensive wrapping for real quality and ethics? When did chocolate, a symbol of joy, turn into a mirror reflecting the worst habits of how we consume? Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly betrayed by a brand you trusted? Maybe luxury isn't gold foil or fancy commercials at all. Maybe it's something far simpler, knowing that what you're eating doesn't come with guilt hidden under the wrapper. Number 4. Ghirardelli. Ghirardelli has always felt like a warm postcard from San Francisco. Sweet, dependable, and wrapped in the kind of Americana that makes you smile without thinking. It's the brand you picture while strolling past the historic waterfront, the one that hands you free samples under its iconic sign like a friendly wink. For decades, it carried a quiet charm, the chocolate you proudly served on silver platters at family gatherings, showing just a touch of class without spending an arm and a leg. It felt safe, almost sentimental, like that neighbor who never forgets to wave when you mow the lawn. But in 2025, that trusted neighbor showed up with a secret you couldn't ignore, and it hit like a crack in a beloved family heirloom. February's updated report from the Environmental Working Group was the first blow. Ghirardelli's intense dark, 86% cacao squares were found to contain cadmium levels averaging 0.88 micrograms per serving, dangerously close to the European Union's maximum limits and well above California's Proposition 65 exposure guidelines. Toxicologists warned that for older adults already fighting fragile bones or kidney strain, this wasn't just a minor concern. Long-term consumption could slowly wear away bone strength and stress already overworked kidneys. In March, a class action lawsuit in Illinois accused Ghirardelli of deceptive marketing, slamming its use of phrases like crafted with care, while failing to warn customers about toxic metals. One frustrated customer told CBS Chicago, "I trusted Ghirardelli like I trust my church bake sale." Turns out, both can have a little sin. It was bitter humor, but the sting was real. April pulled back another curtain, and the view wasn't pretty. A Bloomberg investigation revealed that Ghirardelli, through its parent company Lint and Springley, sourced cocoa from suppliers accused of illegal land grabbing in West Africa. Satellite images from 2023 and 2024 showed thousands of acres of protected forest in Ghana wiped out for cocoa expansion. Farmers interviewed describe being pushed off ancestral lands without compensation, forced to watch their history bulldozed for profit. For a brand that sells artisanal tradition, this was like pulling back a velvet tablecloth only to find rot underneath. Then came May, and the humiliation went global. Germany temporarily restricted Ghirardelli dark chocolate imports after cadmium levels failed to meet updated EU thresholds. Videos of German officials destroying pallets of Ghirardelli bars spread across social media, with hashtags like #NotMyGhirardelli climbing fast. For many Americans, especially older ones who tucked Ghirardelli squares into Christmas stockings or handed them to grandchildren with pride, this wasn't just about chocolate. It felt like an old friend had lied straight to their face. And yet, step back for a moment and the story turns more complicated. Cocoa prices in early 2025 hit their highest level in over a decade, pushing companies to balance soaring costs with consumer expectations for affordable treats. Maybe in corporate boardrooms, executives didn't see themselves as villains but as survivors in a rigged system, where ethics bend under pressure. It's almost tragic if you think about it. People who once prided themselves on crafted perfection, convincing themselves they were just borrowing trust for one more quarter. But does survival ever justify treating that trust like loose change? If you still want chocolate without that sour aftertaste of guilt, there are better choices. Smaller craft brands like Alter Eco or Ritual Chocolate have published independent 2025 lab results, showing far lower cadmium levels and transparent sourcing. Or you can melt fair trade cocoa powder with coconut oil, add crushed walnuts, and freeze your own quick chocolate bark at home. At least then, you'll know exactly what you're eating and who paid the price for it. But here's the uncomfortable truth we need to swallow. Have we been too quick to believe that American classics automatically mean safety? Have we traded our standards for the comfort of nostalgia, letting familiar logos lull us into silence? When did something as simple as a piece of chocolate start carrying the weight of corporate greed, environmental destruction, and broken promises? Maybe it's time we stop looking at these brands like old friends and start asking whether those friends have been taking more from us than they ever gave. Number 5. Nestle. Nestle has always been the chocolate that felt like family. It's the Toll House cookies baking in a warm oven while grandkids peek over the counter, the hot cocoa that takes the sting out of frozen fingers after shoveling snow, and those chocolate chips you sneak straight from the bag when no one's watching. For over a century, Nestle wrapped itself in trust and nostalgia, like the kind-hearted grandmother who always had sweets in her purse. But in 2025, that sweet grandmotherly image feels more like a wolf in a borrowed sweater, smiling warmly while something sharp hides just beneath. April delivered the first painful crack in that image. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration revealed that Nestle's Toll House dark chocolate chips were under investigation after routine testing found lead levels averaging 1.05 micrograms per serving, well beyond California's Proposition 65 daily exposure limit. By May, Consumer Reports confirmed the findings, placing Nestle among the most concerning brands for cumulative heavy metal exposure. Toxicologists warned that frequent consumption could accelerate cognitive decline and damage bone marrow, particularly in older adults and children. The betrayal hit deeply because Nestle wasn't some luxury treat, it was a kitchen staple. One Texas grandmother interviewed by NBC with tears running down her cheeks said, "I gave those to my grandkids for years. I feel like I poisoned them myself." It was the kind of heartbreak that turns guilt inward, but heavy metals were just the start. In May, Reuters exposed a darker truth. Nestle remained connected to forced labor. In Brazil's cocoa supply chain, despite years of pledges to clean up sourcing, journalists documented migrant workers trapped in debt bondage, working 12-hour days in hazardous conditions for barely $2 daily, living in shacks that barely qualified as shelters. The irony cut deep. A brand that built its identity on family warmth, still profiting from suffering halfway across the world. It felt like discovering that the family doctor you trusted for decades was secretly hurting his patients. Then came the public humiliation. In June, the European Union banned several Nestle dark chocolate products until they complied with updated cadmium and lead thresholds. France and Belgium issued advisories explicitly warning consumers against Nestle products due to contamination risks. Social media filled with videos of store clerks pulling Nestle bars from shelves, and the hashtag Nestle betrayal surged online. Watching a brand so rooted in American kitchens dragged into the mud felt like losing trust in an old friend. And yet, if you look closer, it's hard not to see the desperation behind the mistakes. Cocoa prices have soared to record highs due to climate-driven crop failures in Ghana and Ivory Coast, and investors keep demanding stable prices and endless production. Maybe Nestle's executives didn't think of themselves as villains, just survivors trying to keep shelves stocked and shareholders happy. But temporary shortcuts in food safety aren't temporary for the people who pay the price. Should we save our sympathy for the corporation under pressure, or for the families who trusted them enough to keep feeding this chocolate to their children? If you still want to bake cookies or sip cocoa without a side of worry, look for brands that actually publish their lab results. Pasha Organic chocolate chips, for example, released independent 2025 reports confirming lead levels far below Proposition 65 limits. Or you could skip the doubt entirely, melt Fairtrade cocoa butter, whisk in low-cadmium cocoa powder, and pipe little drops onto parchment paper to make your own chocolate chips. It's simpler than you think, and at least you know exactly what's going in. But maybe the biggest question isn't about chocolate at all. Why do we keep forgiving companies just because they feel like family? When did nostalgia become a free pass for cutting corners? Has a brand you grew up trusting ever left you feeling betrayed this way? And if even the staples in our pantry can't be trusted anymore, what does that say about the system we're all part of? Maybe it's time we stop letting familiar names soothe us and start asking harder questions before another bite of home turns into another bitter lesson. Maybe chocolate was never supposed to carry this much weight. It used to be a symbol of joy, a simple bite of sweetness we shared with family, friends, and ourselves without thinking twice. But now, every shiny wrapper feels like a question mark, every familiar brand a gamble. Heavy metals in the bars we grew up with, children working in dangerous fields so we can enjoy a cheap treat, forests cleared so corporations can keep prices low. It's hard not to wonder if we've traded too much for convenience. And here's the uncomfortable truth. These companies exist because we let them. Our dollars, our trust, and even our silence feed this system. Are we willing to keep looking away just because the brand feels familiar, or are we finally ready to demand better? When did chocolate stop being a comfort and start being a reminder of how far we've allowed profit to run ahead of humanity? Maybe this isn't just about chocolate. It's about what kind of future we're building every time we choose to spend without asking questions. If this video made you think twice, share your story in the comments. Have you ever felt betrayed by a brand you trusted? What do you believe needs to change? Hit subscribe and join us, because together we can push for answers, one truth at a time.
Thank you for watching today's video all the way through. If you found the content helpful, don't forget to click like and subscribe to stay updated with our latest daily videos. Now, feel free to check out other feature videos currently showing on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.